Hello and welcome to another edition of Resource Review. We aim to give you a clear guide to those essential classroom resources. Today we're focusing on secondary maths. Joining me to recommend today's resources is Adam Crean. Adam is Head of Mathematics at Salesian School in Surrey. We also have Adrienne Jones, Freelance Education Consultant, and Alan Mills, Head of Affiliation Network for the Specialist Schools Trust. Well, a very warm welcome to you all. Adam, as our maths expert, you've selected 3 CD-ROM-based resources for us to discuss today. We've got problem pictures, we've got a complementary set, multiplication and division exploded, as well as some new software for developing financial capability through maths. Now, why 3 CDs for us today?
Okay, I wouldn't normally do everything on CD, but the reason I've picked the first 2 is because they're very visual resources. As you'll see when we look in the classroom, they're things that are going to be very useful for the students to look at. The third CD is something that is brand new, and I think it's something that all teachers are going to find very useful.
Well, Adam, first up is problem pictures. Can you tell us more about this resource and specifically why you chose it?
Okay, Problem Pictures has got 184 different photographs on it, along with notes and questions that will prompt discussion. The reason I picked it is because as a teacher, I often see things out on the street or see things on a holiday and think, but there's maths in that. What Richard Phillips has done with the CD is he's collected together a lot of different starting points. Some of them may be quite visual in terms of mathematical topics. Some of them may be just a picture that sparks a question and gets the class discussing.
OK, well, before we have any further discussion, let's go and see problem pictures in use in the classroom. We visited Adam Thorne at Blackminster Middle School in Evesham, Worcestershire.
Working with square and triangle numbers. We've done a bit of this before, so you're reasonably familiar with this work. I think the concept is that the source of the mathematical problem may be an unfamiliar source, but I think it's an everyday one. One of the principles for me in maths at Blackminster is to make maths enjoyable, but also related to everyday life. And I think this particular resource fits the bill in that sense. Many resources are quite traditional, and I think to use a different resource is very useful, particularly with the use of ICT. What does it look like if it were a 12-hour clock? What does it look like if it were a 12-hour clock? I think this particular CD-ROM can be used for all 3 parts of the lesson. As you know, we have a starter, a main part of a lesson and a plenary. Now, I think this CD-ROM could be used as a starter in a variety of lessons. You could be searching for patterns in shape and space and also with number. It can be used as a main part of a lesson, as I did, where I had 3 pictures showing triangle numbers in different contexts. And then, of course, it can be used as a plenary as well, where you're wrapping up a particular topic or you want to introduce the next topic for the next lesson. So I think it's a very useful CD-ROM in the sense it can be used in a number of different ways.
Fairly unusual to see pictures used like that in a maths lesson.
I don't think many teachers will have their own bank of resources in terms of photos like that. But to have so many together in one place is obviously the benefit of having this CD. And there is a second CD called Problem Pictures Themes that again collects together another 200, but puts them together under themes like spirals or mazes. So if you're doing a particular investigation, if you want doing a series of lessons on a particular aspect of maths, then you can find plenty of things to use as your starters.
So this resource potentially will save time for teachers in terms of it's a collection. Does it actually enhance their teaching, though? Does it give them ideas for lesson plans?
Yes, I mean, with each picture you have questions and you have discussion points that you can use, but it may well be up to the teacher to think, well, what else can I get out of this? For the ability of the class and for the age of the class, then it can lend itself to lots of different starting questions.
Okay. Alan, if I could come to you and ask you, do you see this kind of resource as something that the teacher could come back to and use repeatedly, or is it really just something they might use occasionally?
No, I'm sure it can be used over and over again, especially on an interactive whiteboard. The idea of being able to label certain parts of the photo, being able to use it just to encourage discussion. There's lots of skills, I think, within the maths lesson, but outside that will be stimulated by this.
Adrienne, is this whole class teaching, or can you see it actually individuals working on this as well?
Most definitely. It is something that could be used for groups or individual children on a laptop. I had a slight problem with some of it. It's called problem pictures, but they're given tasks and it doesn't give a lot of help. So although
help to the teacher or
no,
to the
help
pupil?
to the pupil. So if you were using it individually, it doesn't actually give you the kind of help that I think it needs.
I mean, Adam, obviously, Adrienne bringing up a point there. What would you say? I mean, is there enough help for the pupils to work on this alone?
No, I think it's definitely something where the teacher's going to have to plan very carefully. I think with like a lot of resources, the teacher is responsible for making sure that the resource is used for the appropriate group and the appropriate level they're working at.
Well, thank you all very much. Now let's move on to the next set of resources for secondary maths. And this is a pair of complementary CD-ROMs called Multiplication and Division Exploded. Adam, why did you choose these two CD-ROMs? What's different?
Well, I saw these demonstrated by the creator of them at the BET exhibition earlier this year, and they really just blew my mind because they were so visual. You know, far more so than problem pictures because these are interactively visual. There's so many different methods that students learn now in primary school on how to do multiplication, how to do division, you know, the box method and chunking and all those sorts of things. And these programs cover them all, but it actually does it on the screen so students can see the numbers.
Right. So this is a resource that teachers would use for their whole class teaching.
Definitely, and it would definitely be something you do interactively. You know, you've got a grab hand, you move around and you actually drag the numbers around, split them up and show how the calculation works. It's very instructive.
OK. Well, let's go and see these resources in use. We went to Darwick Wood School in Orpington in Kent, where teacher Dawn Denyer is using them.
The resource is a very visual resource, going from looking at how multiples can be subtracted in a chunking method in division to how you can share a number out, looking at remainders and basically looking at various concepts that may be helpful when it comes to solving problems.
Right, so this shows us why we've got a remainder. I've shared 256 into, how many sixes have we got here?
Both resources come on a CD. You can have them as a standalone for one computer, or we actually have a site licence for the school, so each member of my staff can run a version in their classroom. The good points about the resource, there are so many different ways you can show the maths. It's less than just teaching a process. You're actually showing how and why what they're doing actually works. With the multiplication, particularly with the grid method, it helps them see what exactly are they multiplying. You know, the 2 in a 20 is actually, you know, worth 20. It's not just shoving a naught in, which quite often they're taught to do. So they're actually visualising what the numbers really are, and they engage with it, which, you know, is part of them learning what it is that we're actually doing with the multiplication and the division. I think this is a unique package. I actually haven't seen anything that really explains the processes with division or with multiplication in quite the same way. When I saw the trial version of this CD, I used it and then I bought the site licence because I wanted everybody else to share with it, and I've been telling everybody else that I've met about the programme.
Well, Adam, seeing the resource in use, it's undoubtedly very visually exciting. Is there a new drive towards visual teaching in maths?
I think so. I mean, now that we have interactive whiteboards in many schools, I know not everybody has that facility, but the ability to be able to pull things onto the screen and move them around so that you're actually using things interactively rather than just as a display. And these two programs do exactly that. The fact that you can actually see all the patterns of dots. If you're doing a big multiplication with 2 or 3 digits in each number, it's spread out on the screen, it's grouped in tens, it's grouped in hundreds. It's very easy for students to see where the different numbers in the calculation came from. They're no longer having to think which is the tens digit and which is the units digit and try and do it all in their head using a formal written method, because this explains to them why the formal written method works.
Adrienne, were you impressed?
No. exploded. I wish it would. I found as I was watching it that this kind of veil of I don't want to know about that came
Now,
up.
but is that you as a learner? I mean, can you see the value of it for teachers?
Well, I'm seeing it actually as someone who identifies with students that maybe do find maths difficult. And I was going to say that I don't think the visual element of it is particularly attractive. The black, the white, the way it moves, it's too quick. The pace of it was difficult.
Adam, what would you say to that?
I think we saw Dawn teaching with it, and we only saw very few bits from her lesson. Obviously, if you're doing this with a more low ability group, which I think is who I would use it with, I think that it's something I would take a lot of time over and actually get the students to talk about it while the numbers are up on the screen. And just start off with a static picture and say, you know, here we have 10 times 10, what happens if? And move the things around slowly. It's very much a tool in the same as a calculator is a tool, in that you choose which calculation you do. You choose the numbers, you choose the difficulty level, and you choose which different way of explaining it.
It seemed confusing because it was looking at place value and techniques, and it kind of confused the two. I thought
It is trying to cover understanding as well as reinforcing the standard methods.
Were confusing to put them together like that.
A teacher wouldn't try and do all of the different things all in one go. I think you would pick a class, pick one of the techniques that's used on the CDs, and explore that first of all.
It's lovely being in the middle of this particular discussion for once, because I think it's a classic example of a resource which is only one tool. You'd never use that as your only tool in your toolkit. You'd use a lot of other things as well, and they should be used in the same lesson. I mean, I thought it was very good. I thought the way it was obviously used in that classroom. I share Adrian's reservations about it, because I think it only goes a certain distance. But, you know, if you used it in context of the whiteboard, it was truly interactive.
Well, thank you all very much. Now let's turn to our third resource, which is some new software for developing financial capability through maths and PSHE. Adam, tell us about this new software.
Okay, this has been produced by PFEG, which is the Personal Finance Education Group, and it's a collection of organisations like financial institutions and other publishers who produce resources specifically to help teach financial literacy, coping with money, coping with bank accounts, coping with living in the real world, essentially. Skills that are vital and are part of every school's PSHE curriculum, something that has to be taught through citizenship. Often it's been left to maths teachers to actually do the work, because we teach percentages, because we're the people who can talk about interest rates, we can talk about the cost of holiday money. It's sort of left to us to do that. So this is a resource that actually helps us. It takes the topic of tourism, so it's looking at things like holiday money, and it's giving clear guidance as to how to address the maths within it, but also how to address the PSHE things. And all schools have to teach citizenship at Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4.
Right.
And this actually means that the maths department can do some coverage and know that they're actually using a resource that's useful.
Brilliant. Well, that's all we've got time for today, but to summarise, we looked at 3 CD-ROM resources. The first one was Problem Pictures. The second, Division and Multiplication Exploded. And finally, Developing Financial Capability through Mathematics and PSHE. Well, for more information on all of the resources discussed today and to post your own comments about other resources for secondary maths, go to our website, that's teachers.tv/resource review. Or if you want to, email us, resourcereview@teachers.tv. I'd like to say a big thank you to our panel, to Adam, to Alan and to Adrienne. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.